Throughout the world, every person and every family seeks security. Nations have pursued security through economic power and military strength. But can the accumulation of wealth and weaponry guarantee genuine security when half the world's people live in unbearable conditions?
If you go around the world and you see the amazing progress in technology and science, there's no doubt at all that there are resources enough. The problem is the distribution.
We are all aware that things cannot continue as they are. Yet, the decisions that shape our world seem to be made somewhere beyond our reach. Feeling powerless to affect the crises facing humanity, many do nothing. But a growing number of ordinary people are carrying out a quiet revolution.
In some situations, all that it takes is for one individual to say, this is enough. We have to stop it. We can't take it anymore. And link up with others.
It's very, very important for us to take action at the local level. Because sometimes when we think of the global problems, we get disempowered. But when we take action at the local level, we are empowered.
In drought-afflicted villages on the Indian subcontinent, under the shadow cast by decades of environmental poisoning in Eastern Europe, and in the heart of Africa, where poverty and ecological devastation go hand in hand, these individuals are having an astonishing impact. Fresh water. It's as important to our survival as the air we breathe.
Water is one of the most significant topics, no doubt. Nothing, no life is possible without water.
But freshwater resources are increasingly endangered. If present trends continue, scientists predict that 2 out of 3 people on Earth will face a water shortage by the year 2025. On the Indian subcontinent, the water crisis has already reached catastrophic proportions. 90% of India's population lives in small rural villages, dependent on agriculture, animal husbandry, and forestry for their survival.
None of those 3 things are possible without water. In fact, what I call ecological poverty, which affects a large part of our rural people in the entire developing world, is nothing but water poverty.
The village of Nimi, located in the northern province of Rajasthan, is home to about 200 households. Like most of India's nearly 1 million villages, Nimi experienced years of severe drought in the 1990s, leaving its fields barren and its people thirsty and malnourished. Nemula Bhutta remembers how difficult it was to feed her 5 children when the land would yield no crops.
Nothing would grow in the fields. Nothing at all.
India's annual monsoon rains made little difference, as the water simply ran off the parched ground. Nimi's ecological crisis had a devastating effect on the villagers, leading to increased hunger and disease. the men were forced to leave Nimi and migrate to the nearby city of Jaipur in search of work.
When people have nothing, they will all come flocking to the cities. If we don't address rural poverty, we will see more and more urban poverty.
The cycle of urban migration, followed by expanding poverty and pollution, is familiar throughout India. But the people of Nimi were able to break that pattern when they realized they were not powerless in the face of their village's water problem. The change began when 75-year-old farmer Radu Uja brought back news from a relative's village.
I went to the village of Alwar for a wedding. There I heard a story about how they were no longer at the mercy of the drought.
Radu learned their secret was rainwater harvesting, a system of check dams that hold the monsoon rains in the village. The residents of Nimi pooled what little money they had, and with technical assistance from an Indian non-profit organization, they built their own rainwater harvesting system. 3 check dams collect rainwater runoff from surrounding hills. The water then seeps into the earth, filling Nimi's underground aquifers and numerous wells.
Whenever people come to Nimi to see what we've done, we feel really proud.
Water is pumped from the wells into the fields. Crops have become so plentiful that Nimi now exports truckloads of fruit and vegetables during harvest season. Nimi's fertile land also provides abundant grass for its cows, resulting in a 4-fold increase in milk production. The villagers have even started a dairy co-op, selling milk to nearby cities.
I used to be able to feed my children only bread and chutney, but now things are different. The difference is that now we have enough money so that our children can go to school.
When I first came here, there were only about 150 children in the school. Now there are over 300.
You can see very clearly in a village like Nimi how you begin with water wealth by doing rainwater harvesting, moving on to ecological wealth, and then finally moving on to economic wealth. How the three are so beautifully connected.
The Center for Science and Environment, a non-profit organization based in Delhi, recently sponsored a conference in Nimi. Villagers came from throughout India to witness firsthand what people can accomplish when they take the initiative in establishing their own ecological security.
The average person has an enormous role to play, and you can do this literally village by village in every part of the world. But Nimi is a great example of how within just 2 years you can make such a big difference.
Nimi's hope-filled message has only just begun to spread. The large majority of India's villages have yet to initiate rainwater harvesting, and people in many other regions of the world continue to suffer from water deprivation. The lack of natural resources is just one of the serious threats to human security in the 21st century. During the past 100 years, numerous toxic chemicals were produced that are now poisoning our natural resources with devastating effects. The worst of these are persistent organic pollutants, or P.O.Ps, widely used in pesticides, electrical equipment, and insulation. Sometimes the serious threat posed by P.O.Ps is clearly evident, but in most cases, it is invisible to the eye. Zemplínska Sirava Lake in eastern Slovakia is a favorite holiday destination. Hundreds of thousands flock here every summer for camping, boating, swimming, hiking, and fishing. What few can imagine is that this beautiful lake is a major repository for polychlorinated biphenyls, P.C.Bs.
P.C.Bs and other persistent organic pollutants are the worst properties man ever met.
Martin Morin, a specialist in hazardous chemicals, understands that children playing in the water are at risk. Even more in jeopardy are the fishermen, who ignore warnings not to eat fish from the lake.
Navyše tu máte aj hory, hneď za
Ja,
tým.
to je pěkné, to je krásné město.
As PCBs accumulate in the human body through exposure and consumption, they damage the immune system, thyroid, nervous system, and reproductive organs. They are thought to be carcinogens and have been linked to breast and uterine cancer. In Bratislava, at Slovakia's National Laboratory, scientists like Dr. Anton Kotzan are alarmed.
We found very high concentration of PCBs in fish. Those levels are very high, and we can say that they are about 300 times higher than PCB levels in control areas in Slovakia.
PCBs are not only toxic, they persist in the environment for centuries without breaking down. If the problem is not solved, the PCB levels at Zemplínska Sirava Lake will continue to threaten generation after generation. But where did these toxins come from? The source of Slovakia's PCB problem can be found 60 kilometers from Sirava Lake at the Chemco plant in Starsky. This was the former Soviet bloc's largest producer of PCBs for use in electrical equipment.
PCB production started at Chemco in 1959. Approximately 21,000 tons of PCBs were produced until 1984, when the production was stopped.
1,000 tons remain in stockpiles, posing a threat to future generations. Even worse, hundreds of tons escaped into a nearby canal before production ceased. PCBs in the sediment continue to be carried into the Luberitz River, then on into Zemplínska Sirava Lake. Further studies are needed, but Martin and others recognize that ultimately the only way to protect the health of the area may be to drain the lake, dredge up the entire lake bottom, and destroy the sediment. As bad as the situation is, Slovakia is actually a step ahead of most other nations. Many countries, including affluent ones, have yet to seriously address the danger of persistent organic pollutants in their environment. Martin and other concerned Slovaks have been instrumental in forging a collaboration among government, industry, and civil society towards finding a solution. The result is the world's first comprehensive project to establish a safe PCB destruction facility.
The issue of PCBs is considered to be an important problem in Slovakia.
Katarina Magulova of the Ministry of the Environment meets regularly with non-governmental partners like Martin and Elena Pilvanova, who chairs a non-profit environmental organization.
We've become a representative of public in that area. We are that voice talking on behalf of people living there to defend their health.
In the international arena, a significant step was taken in 2001 when 90 countries signed a global treaty banning 12 of the most dangerous persistent organic pollutants, including PCBs. The signing of this treaty was a first step toward halting further production of the poisonous chemicals. Destroying existing P.O.Ps will be a more daunting task. The primary method for eliminating P.O.Ps had been incineration, until it was discovered that this process releases even more dangerous toxins into the atmosphere. The current project in Slovakia could provide a new model for the safe destruction of P.O.Ps.
If the project would be successful, then the lessons learned within this project could be then applied in other projects all over the world.
The scale of ecological damage wrought in the past century is so vast, many feel powerless to effect a change. Compounded with a myriad of other threats to humanity, poverty, hunger, refugees, and weapons of mass destruction, our global crisis can seem insurmountable. But those who have been devoting their lives to human and ecological security, people who, by virtue of their occupation, should be the most pessimistic, agree that there is hope, and it rests with individual people taking action right where they are.
Every one of us can make a contribution, and quite often we are looking for big things and forget wherever we are, we can make a contribution.
30 years ago, biology professor Wangari Maathai realized the deforestation taking place in the mountains of Kenya would have a devastating effect on her country's people and ecology.
I remember the forests literally going up in flames, large bonfires, as the settlers burnt the indigenous forests.
The destruction of Kenya's forests has been unceasing. Trees cut down for lumber, land cleared for farming and cash crops. Even the country's impoverished people, desperate for firewood, take from the depleted forest.
The continuous encroachment on our forests, to the point that now we have less than 2% of the original forests, has put us on a danger zone.
Kenya's poor have been hardest hit by the effects of deforestation in the mountains. The forest trees and bamboo are rainwater catchments, the vital source for Kenya's streams, rivers, and lakes.
And when the rains come pouring down, because the bamboo forest has been removed, all the waters rush downstream. And with that water, they carry massive soil erosion.
As once vibrant and clear rivers turned muddy and others dried up, the fertile farmlands of Kenya's valleys were transformed into desert.
So all these impressions eventually convinced me that our country was threatened with desertification, soil erosion, loss of biological diversity.
Wangari decided something had to be done. In 1974, she began organizing rural women and encouraged them to plant trees. They grew into the Green Belt movement, tens of thousands of women across Kenya who have planted 20 million trees.
And I got an inspiration that perhaps many of these women from the rural areas could plant trees. And if they did, they could stop soil erosion. If they planted fruit trees, they would be able to give themselves and their children fruits, and that would take care of some of the malnutrition that was due to unbalanced diets. I have eventually come to call them foresters without diplomas, and I saw that it's possible to mobilize ordinary people to change their lives, to improve their lives, and not to wait for the government or any other people from far-flung countries to come and change their lives. When I watch those women, they do not have the education. Some of them are bare feet. They don't have much in their lives. But as you then turn around and see what they have done, and then you see that they have actually done much more than some people who have more wealth, who have shoes, who have cars, who have a lot of education.
While deforestation continues and Kenya's ecology remains severely threatened, the trees planted by the Greenbelt movement offer hope that the country's forests will one day be revived. Even more heartening is that those who had been the most disempowered are now having the greatest impact on Kenya's future.
We are very happy because we know that generations to come will enjoy what we have planted. We want to pass this movement on to our children, which is why we bring them with us.
At the moment, we are using resources that we have received from our ancestors, and it would be very selfish of us to use the resources of this planet as if we are the last generation.
We stand at a critical moment in the Earth's history, a time when humanity must choose its future course.
Today we share one planet, and I think everyone is aware that what happens in one country can affect the other. And we are so interdependent that we cannot behave as if we live in isolation.
Across the globe, 800 million people suffer from malnutrition, and 2.9 billion live without basic sanitation. More than 1 billion children are denied grade school education, and nearly half the people on Earth subsist on less than $2 a day. Meeting the basic needs for all people in developing countries would cost approximately $80 billion a year. While that money has not been found, the world's governments spend 10 times that amount per year on their militaries. As we enter the 21st century, the time has come to re-examine our priorities.
I think we have quite a lot of work to do, but it is not impossible. I think we have the means and the resources to do it. What we need is a will, and we need to all work in partnership.
Governments have a role to play, but even more important are people who have the courage to speak out and guide their governments.
My advice would be become engaged, get involved, and begin to pressure governments and policymakers to steer things in the right direction.
Like the women of Kenya's Greenbelt movement, the engaged citizens of Slovakia, and the rainwater harvesters in India, our voices and our actions can have a far-reaching effect.
Sometimes I tell myself, I may be only planting a tree here, but just imagine what's happening if there are billions of people out there doing something. Just imagine the power of what we can do.